Good evening and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this evening. Well, we've all calmed down a bit. The one good thing about yesterday, it gets my 6 to 8 monthly little bit of a go out and a bender and get pissed out the way, and that's it, done for the year. It was fantastic as far as I'm concerned. I can now focus on the rest of the year and be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Anyway, good evening and welcome back to the channel with myself, Baz. There's a lot of news kicking around about Kieran Tierney, and you've got to say, people have been saying, why is Kieran Tierney not taking a club in England? Well, he has turned down the opportunity to speak to quite a few clubs in England that have inquired to take him to another club in England and pay him significantly more, significantly more than what Celtic would be paying, that would be willing than what Celtic would be paying for the player. It's also come to light today also that there is Kieran Tierney, if he rips up his contract, the negotiations are going around the fact that Kieran Tierney would earn £3 million between now and the end of the season. And by all accounts, Tierney's basically saying, don't care, I want to come home. When you put it in that kind of perspective, there's a lot of players saying, we can't afford him, why would he come back to Celtic for less wages? He's coming back, and that lot across the road, they've went from sacking their manager to keeping him because he's the best thing since sliced cheese, now saying that Kieran Tierney's coming back because it's a farmers league and he's not up to it in the big league. Make up your mind, chaps. Really, make up your minds. But anyway, Kieran Tierney, we need KT. Taylor has been shit for months, is Whoopie. KT taking that. Anybody that takes. People slate people for leaving Celtic and going on to better themselves. They slated Ange Postecoglou, they slated Brendan Rodgers, people slated KT, saying that he sold us out. He should never have left when we were going for the 10, even though it was a few years away from the 10. But when you look at it, he's a player that has earned over £35 million at his time down in London. And that's an awful lot of money in anybody's book. It's an awful lot of money for anybody's book. Kudos to Celtic for doing their bit to reduce suicides and domestic violence yesterday. Interesting. Talking about violence, yes. It's all about sex and violence. It's not all about sex and violence. There was a terrible thing happened at Ibrox yesterday, and I'm going to give it a little bit of airtime because I think it does need to be addressed. It was addressed in this morning's video, but when you look at it, the culprit, he's been spotted. Yes, he's been spotted already, and I'm going to put the video up, and they could say what they want, but here is the video of the said culprit throwing the coin. It has been the rest of the fans have been blocked out, but you could see up where the circling, you can actually see the guy throw the coin that hits Arnie Engels, and that's an interesting one. So there is the video for all to see. The fact that you can see the guy. I'm just going to put this up here. Let's get it on. You'll see him there. You just see him throwing the coin. And he's probably thinking, whoa, what a lucky shot. What a lucky shot. You're a dancer. I'll go down as a legend. No, you'll go down as an idiot and you'll probably get banned for football, which he rightly should, because in this day and age, it shouldn't be a thing. But anyway, if we can spot him, if people online can spot him, surely Police Scotland and the Sevconians will be able to spot him, and we hope that he gets a little knock at the door. Considering it was only just a few days ago that Police Scotland did put out photographs of a big number of Celtic fans that they wanted to speak to after chasing the zombies out of Glasgow. And it was good to see that the Onion Bears made a return for the game. I'm glad they managed to get back from the North Pole, because that was the last place they were spotted just as we were heading into the new year. But glad they got back in time for the derby. And they turned up by just doing what they do, singing anti-Catholic songs for the best part of 90 minutes. Nothing new there. But anyway, let's get back onto the transfer news. No, let's get into the comment section, because we need to say good evening to everyone. And let's say, first of all, Diane, we move on from yesterday and focus on strengthen, put them further out of our sight this season. We'll end the season with a treble. I think when we get to the end of the season, and if we do win the treble, and it's a big ask, but we will strengthen. Yesterday is a big day for them, and it's a big day for anyone that beats Celtic, right? And let's put it into perspective. It's our first loss in the league. And people are saying, show a bit of respect and show a bit of humility on the video last night. No, why? We're having a fantastic season. I think that people overreact. I do think that people overreact, and it's fine in the moment. It is fine in the moment, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to keep on going on about it and going into a meltdown. We do move on. Anyway, Hoopy says, good evening, boys and girls. Chill pills in the house. Dougie says, money should not mean anything to Tierney. Doug, would you take a massive wage cut to leave your job to go back to an old job? Just asking, just putting it into perspective. He's a human being at the end of the day. He has to earn a living, and I think that the fact that he is willing to compromise on £3 million worth of wages that he has signed a contract for. He's signed a contract with Arsenal. It's in his contract to be paid that $3 million between now and the end of the season. So, do you know, it's I just don't know how you get people to say things like that, especially when they have. And talking about London, Scenarios is coming in from North London. He says, hail, hail. Celtic Mad said, evening all. James says, hail, hail. Big Des. And it says, hail, hail. Was in the trip. Celtic 1888 says, hail, hail. Jamie Brown's in the house. Celtic Mad. Sean Short's in the house. Black Sausage Squares in the house. Peter King says, Tierney is a good player, but he needs to be fit. If he was not fit, do you think that he would have been making the bench for Arsenal the last couple of games? And it looks like he's still going to be on the bench for Arsenal tomorrow, unless Celtic can get this. If he's not on the bench for Arsenal tomorrow, you know that the deal is imminent. And he could even be in Glasgow today, for all we know. The fact that the talks have started taking place generally means that he'll be tying things up down in London. But yeah, he's a good player, but he needs to be fit. Well, he must be fit. The fact that he was on the bench, he was an unused sub for the last game, and he was predicted to be on the bench for Arsenal tomorrow as they play, I'm sure. Hoopy says, we need KT. Taylor has been absolute wash for months. We need a new striker. Kyogo can't just turn up for half a season. We need a strong defensive midfield player. We get bullied far too easy. That's all things that we've been talking about for months on this channel. I've said it before. Ultimately, I think that we need two strikers to put pressure on Kyogo and Adam Ida. I mean, people are saying, the Huns are saying, oh, imagine spending $9 million on a bench warmer. Imagine having $9 million to spend on a bench warmer. Put that into perspective. Do you know, the money is no object to Celtic. It's all about having different types of players. Adam Ida gives Celtic something completely different. It's not our fault. We paid $9 million for him, and them slagging us off for paying $9 million for a bench warmer. Well, at least we've got the money and we've earned the money honestly to be able to spend that. So put it into perspective. They would love to have $9 million to spend on one player and to sit on the bench. They would absolutely love it. Anyway, he's always injured. There would be no point signing for him to sit in the hospital room every other week, says Niall. Well, he's not injured just now. He's sitting on the bench at Spurs, at Arsenal, sorry. Paul McEwen is in the house in hail. Is it confirmed? Is he definitely back? Says Phil Sorrow. No, it's not confirmed, but the talks, they're only going one way, and the fact that Tierney has turned down talks with West Ham, and I can't remember who the other team is. Paradise Found. I did say that in the summer. But Brendan, when you look at the situation for the left back position, we're going into. We should have had a left back's position sorted out way before now, right? And I did say that in Paradise Found. I said it would be the wrong thing to take him back. I said that in the summer. I thought that there was better options out there for us to go and get. I don't think that we got the options that we wanted, so we ended up going for Alex Baye on loan, and we all agree that was a sticky plaster. That was a sticky plaster for the left-back position. The fact that Barcelona do not want to sell Alex Bailly, they see him as one for the future. They wanted him put out on loan to get him first-team action, and especially some action in the Champions League. The fact that Celtic have been unable to get their preferred target for the left-back position in various occasions. Brendan Rodgers will know the way that this has worked out. Brendan Rodgers had a meeting with Kieran Tierney for the Celtic Foundation dinner thing down in London. That's when it all changed, if you ask me. At that meeting, we can all say that it was never going to happen until Brendan Rodgers personally spoke to Kieran Tierney. Now, I mean, I could dig out the picture, but we all know the picture. The two of them were pictured together, and the Celtic Foundation put it out there on their social media, and that was Celtic indirectly telling you what Brendan Rodgers was thinking and planning. Brendan Rodgers if Greg Taylor goes, we need another Scottish player in for the Champions League quota of Scottish homegrown players, and I'll trust in Brendan Rodgers' thinking. And we still need another left back. Even if Kieran Tierney comes in, we still need another left back in the summer. It's not changed my position. Kieran Tierney will be a fantastic addition, and hats off to anyone that's ready to forgo £3 million. But he's not the answer long term. He is not the answer long term. And I've said that. I think that Kieran Tierney, if he plays the way that Tom Rodgick played for Celtic, Tom Rodgick's never played a full 90 minutes. I think if we use his game time wisely, and we still need to bring in another left back, if we can bring in either someone from the youth system to then train alongside Kieran Tierney, because ultimately we need two left backs as it stands when going into the summer. Alex Bailly, I don't think that Celtic will buy him. They're not even going to get the option to buy him. There is no option to buy with Alex Bailly. So when he goes, we still need another left back. Kieran Tierney will be one that will get the supporters saying that it's one of our own coming back, and it fills the Scottish quota, and it gets us excited, and we're bringing him one of our own back, and he's a warrior. He knows how to win. Brendan Rodgers has the full trust of him. Brendan Rodgers likes him as a guy and a player, and he knows him inside out. He knows how to get the best out of Kieran Tierney, and I think that we need to sometimes just eat humble pie and trust the manager. And that's what I'm doing. I'm eating humble pie. I said at the summer that it wasn't the best player to go for. There had to be other options out there. Celtic had to have went for other options, and they turned around and said no, but they don't want to come to Scotland. It happens. It does happen. Anyway, so Paradise fan, what do you think about Kieran Tierney ultimately coming back? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Sean Beer says it's great news that KT's coming home. Mr. Quinn is in house. Alan Stevenson says kudos to Celtic doing their bit to reduce suicide and domestic violence yesterday. Talking about the result ultimately of the game. It's not confirmed. It's not confirmed, but when you see the media guys that are talking about it, it's around the corner. So that's why we are talking about it. And the fact that he's going to take a £3 million hit, hats off to him. Hats off to him. Anyway, I love KT, but seriously worry about his fitness. More than happy to be proved wrong. Gerard Nelson. Same here. I think if he comes back, Patman said, if someone offered me 4 or 5 times my wage, I'd be Oski. Exactly. He came up on my Facebook feed that KT is back. It's not confirmed by Celtic yet. The talks have taken place today. 100% we need a defensive midfield player. I've been saying that for weeks. And another pivot to free up McGregor, because we've seen yesterday that the man marked and the man marker team, I'm not really wanting to talk about that game anymore. It's done and dusted. We've got another game coming up this weekend. We play St Mirren. And it was only a few days ago, it feels like, that St Mirren were in absolute glory because they managed to beat Rangers 2-1. Yes, St Mirren managed to do what Celtic couldn't. Ultimately, Rangers rested a lot of players, but they don't say that they've rested players against Celtic yesterday. But they got beat away from home against St Mirren. St Mirren then went to... they were at home again to Dundee, on the 29th of December, and they got beat by Dundee at home. And then they went away to Kilmarnock. Yesterday, and they got beat 2-0 by Kilmarnock. So there's an average of 2 goals going in against them the last 2 games. They didn't score yesterday. St Mirren were... It's a win all day long for Celtic. Celtic will not drop points. St Mirren will try and make it hard for Celtic, but Celtic will not drop points this weekend. And I think that when you look at St Mirren in the table, they are sitting 5th in the table, but it is only on goal difference. Aberdeen are in free fall, aren't they? For Aberdeen's given Celtic such a fantastic run, they are completely in free fall. I mean, what has happened to Aberdeen? For going for a joint set, I mean, they were joint first. I mean, they were on the same points as us for so long, right up, and now they're away down to 4th position. I mean, Aberdeen fans were singing that they're going to win the league back in October. Where is he in Aberdeen? Is he on holiday? But anyway, we don't care about them. It's all about Celtic and the fact that Celtic... let's get the league table up on the screen. The fact that Celtic are sitting top of the league still... And we need to just remind ourselves that. Just do this. We need to remind ourselves that we are still top of the table with a massive goals for tally, and we've still got an 11-point lead. So when it comes down to it, look, losing one game at this time of the season, it's a nothing. It is a nothing. They were calling it a dead rubber game, remember, just a few days ago. They themselves were calling it a dead rubber game. And then all of a sudden, they're going to go on and they're wanting to keep the manager and everything. Anyway, who cares? I think KT will finish his career at Celtic. Looking forward to see him back, says Liam. Yes, Liam. And that is why Brendan Rodgers is getting him back. When you look at the players that Brendan... Think about this. Think about the players that Brendan Rodgers wanted to bring into the first team. Rocco Vata and co. There was three players that are in and around the first team that have left Celtic, and that's maybe changed the plans of Brendan Rodgers as well, because the fact that if we could have brought, and it's all about wages, they've demanded first team football, they've demanded a wage that is over and above the wage structure at Celtic, and maybe that's changed Brendan Rodgers' plans. Could you imagine if we had Rocco Vata had stayed at the club and he was our third choice striker and he was getting some game time? He didn't want to be third choice striker. He didn't want to sit about. He wanted first team action. He wanted more money. So that's why he left Celtic. I mean, if we'd had these players had stayed at Celtic, and ultimately Celtic should be paying, I think, a bit more attention on these younger players that are coming through. Because when you have to then go out, look at the money that we've wasted on Orobski. Look at the money that we've wasted on Gustav Lagerbielke, putting them on 12 and 15 grand a week. But when a young boy comes through our system, we're only willing to pay him 3 or 4 grand a week. You know, Brendan Rodgers says that we'd offered Rocco Vata 5 grand a week, and he thought that was more than enough for him, because he's unproven. He's an unproven player. The other players that have came in that I spoke about, they had proven themselves at first team level, and that's why they were put on the wages they were at Celtic. If you prove yourself at first team level at Celtic, you would then expect a wage increase. I think Brendan Rodgers has had to have a rethink since the summer, and since last Christmas. I think he's had to have a rethink of the strategy of the player that we're bringing into the club, due to the fact that there's players that were coming through the system that he would have hoped would have stuck around. And if they had stuck around, the homegrown talent would have stayed the same. Now, is that the reason that we're going back for Kieran Tierney? Kieran Tierney will not want to leave the club. Kieran Tierney comes back to Celtic and he knows that we've got a player for the next 4 seasons. He's 27-year-old. He could do another 5 years at Celtic quite easily, Kieran Tierney. And if he does another 5 years at Celtic, it's got the homegrown quota. That keeps the homegrown quota sitting nice. Although we do need another one, I think. Will we go for the young boy Lennon Miller? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see what Motherwell come out and say about his injury. But the way that you look at it, I think that there's been a serious rethink of players and player strategy when you look at the players that ultimately could have been at the club but have ultimately left the club in the last year or so. Anyway, the money going out would be better spent elsewhere. The money you would spend on Kieran Tierney would be better spent elsewhere. How would it? We need a left back. Greg Taylor's on his way out the club. We need a left back right now. So I don't know how you could say that, Paradise Found. I'm struggling with that one, that comment you've made, because we need a left back. Greg Taylor's on his way out of the club. Greg Taylor will be sold in the next couple of days. If that's Tierney back, mark my words, Greg Taylor's kicked his last ball for Celtic, and you'll find that he's been sold. So we need a left back. We need two left backs, but I don't know how you could think that we could spend. We need a Scottish player to come in, but anyway, that's your choice. That's your choice. You think that we could spend the money better elsewhere. I don't think the money's really an issue with Celtic, to be honest. To be fair, Stephen Kelly's in the house. Can you see them coming? No. He needs to be in jail. Who needs to be in jail? Oh, the guy. Yeah, he does that. KT moved from Celtic to better his career, says Jamie Brown, in the so-called best league in the world. The best league. Jota chased the Dubai dollar. No ambition. How is it no ambition? I still find that bizarre. It's people move jobs. When you leave a job, if you've left any job, I don't think that it's you change for one thing, and it's money or maybe a promotion. Do you know? And saying that that KT went KT had no ambition, or Jota had no ambition. I think everyone's got an ambition in life, or should have, to be able to make enough money to keep. And you do it. So why shouldn't a football player be allowed to do it? I just think it's strange that the people think like that. Hoopy says, like any good player, KT wanted to go and prove himself against the best. Don't hold it against him. Exactly. Okay, money for sitting on the bench. Talking about KT. Chilwell said, I'd love to draw Arsenal in the Champions League next stage, and KT can get it right up Arteta. That would be hilarious, wouldn't it? Because I think we would take Arsenal all day long. I think KT is worth 30-40 million, says Frankie. So the fact is that he's willing to take a pay cut and play for us is unreal. It's like winning a watch every day of the week. Well said, Frankie77. Well said, Frankie77. Well said. He's an international. Look what you're getting here, right? For nothing. Or even if we do have to spend some money on him, right? Say we spend 4 or 5 million on him, whatever the fact that they're not having to pay the 3 million out in wages is something else. The fact that we're getting a player that was sold for 25. Look at it this way: we're getting a player that we sold for 25 million, right? We spent that cash wisely. We invested in the club. The club's in a far better financial position now than it was back then, and we're now getting a player that has 5 years more experience at top level, and we're getting him back for free, and he's taking a massive wage cut to come back to us. Do you know, it is like winning a watch all day long. Paradise Found says, losing to them was unacceptable. I think we allowed a monster to wake up. Nope, that was a zombie, Paradise Found. And you cannot win it's a very, very special team. And we're not going to be invincible. It's not, the invincible season has now gone, right? It's happened. We've been beaten. There was too many players had bad days yesterday. 2 of the goals, I've watched it back in my sobriety, and I watched the highlights back. And Cameron Carter-Vickers was actually at fault for 2 goals, which is unlike him. whilst Liam Scales might have been off the ball altogether, Cameron Carter-Vickers should have done better at the back post. He should have got to the ball before the player for one of their goals. And then I think it was the third goal, Cameron Carter-Vickers goes to ground and tries to kick the ball out, and the ball goes right through him. And then they score, there's an unmarked player to score their third goal. That's unlike Cameron Carter-Vickers. It's unlike him to make two mistakes in a game like that. Two very costly mistakes, let us be said. But you can't just pin the blame on any one player yesterday. It was a collective. Paolo, but I mean, we could sit here and you could go through the whole team. The only one, the man of the match for Celtic for me, was the goalkeeper, was Schmeichel. And somebody said this morning, that the manager's signings have been terrible. Well, if it wasn't for Schmeichel, it could have been worse yesterday. Anyway, Katie's incoming says William Capello. Chilpel, Katie is world class, exactly. Now, if we play like we did yesterday, Arsenal would hump us 8 home and away. What about Bruni and KT future team management team? That would be an interesting one, Stephen Kelly. On a big shout out to a man who's signed. Where is it? It's up there. It's a man who's signed one of the Ultras scarf behind me, Charlie Mulgrew. Charlie Mulgrew is taking his first steps into football management. Yes, Charlie Mulgrew is taking his first step into football management with Celtic Hearts. And I was also informed that Charlie Mulgrew was at a UEFA coaching course thing. He was spotted at that with Scott Brown last week in a certain hotel in Glasgow. So yeah, it just shows that Brunei's still taking some coaching badges, and Charlie Mulgrew was there with him, and in a hotel in Glasgow last week when they were doing whatever they do in the meeting rooms at the hotel when it comes to their coaching badges. I'd like to say I wish Charlie Mulgrew all the best, but the team he's went to is a little Hun community team, So it's nice. It's interesting to see Charlie Mulgrew taking that first step into management. KT's world class, just with the injury situation with him. Dave Morton, I understand that, but you have a manager that knows how to get the best out of the player, and I don't think that he would have had. You've got to go back. Where is that picture? Let's get it up. Because you have to go back to that meeting. Images. Right, there's the image. So this is when it all started. This is when it became clear that Kieran Tierney was going to come back. What one's that? This one. So the timeline of events obviously changed. Get rid of the league. The timeline of events obviously changed after this meeting, and that was back in early December, when the Celtic Foundation were down in London doing a charity dinner, and Celtic get Kieran Tierney. It's a sneaky way to get a player to talk to a manager, and there's Kieran Tierney and Brendan Rodgers in deep conversation at the Celtic Foundation event. Now that's only one picture, but that picture speaks 1,000 words, no matter what way you try and butter it over. That's a manager talking to a player, selling him on the idea of coming back to Celtic. There's Kieran Tierney, and deep in thought, having a lot to think about. Listening to Brendan Rodgers, telling him why he wants him back at Celtic, telling him exactly why he wants Kieran Tierney back, how he's going to use him as a player, what he sees his role within the club being also. And that conversation has been the turning point of the season for Brendan Rodgers. If that meeting never happened, I don't think that the Kieran Tierney deal would. There's probably there must be things that would have went on within the background of Celtic for Brendan Rodgers to turn around and saying, we need this left back situation sorted. One way or another, we need stability in the left back area. And we don't have that. We've never had decent competition for Greg Taylor. Right? And Greg Taylor's been here since... well, I don't even want to talk about how long Greg Taylor's been there. But has there's no disrespect to Greg Taylor. He's done a fantastic job over the years. But he's not had any pressure put on him. He's not had any pressure at all put on him. We've had players that have come into Celtic. Alexandro Bernabe, he's just been sold for $5 million. Never touched a ball for Celtic. There's not been. We need that position. We need a player that's going to come in and make that position his own. And also, I think that Brendan Rodgers would have said to him, "I want you to come back and be on my coaching staff. Ultimately, I want you to come back, and there's also a coaching role for you at the end of your football career. There's a coaching role for you at Celtic." And I think that's the way that the conversation would have went. And for Kieran Tierney, who's made over $35 million at his time down in Spurs, it's getting him on a free and what he could bring to the club. Nobody talks about the fact that John Kennedy, his career was cut short. He was put on the coaching staff at Celtic to keep him involved in football and pay him a wage. He was training the youngsters, and he's went out and he's earned his badges and he's worked his way up through the system at Celtic. And he's another one that has had opportunities to go and better himself and get bigger financial reward to go to other clubs. But he's one of us and he wants the best for Celtic. Brendan Rodgers bringing Kieran Tierney back is bringing one of us back. And thinking long term, the experience that Kieran Tierney could bring, even in a coaching capability to the younger player within that, is something that every single good team has. All your big top teams in Europe, they all have players that have been in and around the club for a long time. Players that have went away, come back as legends, and then they go into the coaching staff side of it. Anyway, I remember Nicholas coming back. Yeah, that looks like 5 years. Greg Taylor has been here. Signed in 2019. Yes, I know he did. Ciao, Paul. But just a blank out what happened in 2020, 2021. Hatate is not Celtic classes. Big Des. 5 years is too long at Arsenal. Big Des, I've had enough of Hatate. I think we all have. We'll meet again. Signed for that. Picture was. KT played 93 games in the Premiership in 5 years. No, he's not. He's played 125. He's played 125 games. James Connolly. Hatate, one good game in 5. Yes, he has. And nobody's talking about that. Nothing but lavi drinkers let their club die. Sell Hatate, Scales and Taylor. All the love for Scales that has been out there. You've got to remember, Scales was on his way out the club. Celtic brought in 2 centre-backs. Scales should have been nowhere near the first team if the players that Celtic had brought in had been up to it. And ultimately they weren't. Anyway, we should flog Hatate in the window or just sell him. Hatate is world class if he could pass the ball 2 yards. Hatate is world class if he could just pass the ball. He's like Marmite. You either love him or you loathe him. Anyway, the SPFL, we've done that one. Kieran Tierney. So yeah, pre-contract agreement. Celtic are working on the premises of a pre-contract agreement, but ultimately they want to get the deal done in this window. Arsenal have obviously informed the full-back that they do not intend to exercise the option of another year on his contract, which is due to expire in June. Kieran Tierney was told that back in early December. around about the time that he had that meeting with the picture that's on the screen now. Despite more lucrative opportunities in bigger leagues, the 27-year-old is willing to take a substantial pay cut to be reunited with his boyhood club. As discussions move over before the end of the month, a move could take place. Once the nuts and bolts of the pre-contract are agreed, that they are in place for the summer, they'll want to get the deal done to try and bring him to Celtic in this window. Sold to Arsenal for $25 million in 2019, Kieran Tierney made 125 appearances in his injury-hit spell, but he did come back in the Carabao Cup win over Crystal Palace. Despite slipping down the pecking order at the Emirates, defensive injuries are likely to see him feature in the matchday squad against Brighton. This goes on to say... Anyway, right. Asked whether any players were allowed to leave in January, Mikel Arteta says that everyone who's on the bench or playing for the club wants to be here. If something happens, we will assess it. That's that. The situation could change if Greg Taylor is out of contract, moves this month. I think that Greg Taylor will be sold this month. Celtic will not allow that situation to... and I think if Greg Taylor is sold, that will help finance some of the cash for bringing Kieran Tierney back in a way. Right, that is me done and dusted. KT's a millionaire means more... Celtic means more than money to him, Baz. Of course it does, Tony. Of course it does. Listen, when Kieran comes back, he'll get injured from time to time, but he's still a great signing. Exactly. How many times has Cameron Carter-Vickers been injured since he's been at Celtic? How many times has Rio Hatate been injured? How many times has Kyogo been injured with his shoulder and various things? You know, so players get injured. Totally lost the plot now. I'm done and dusted. We're going to do a video tomorrow morning talking about St Mirren. We entertain St Mirren back at Celtic Park. We'll get back there for a 3 o'clock kickoff on Sunday. And by that time, we could the gap could either be closer than what it is, or it could be still the same. Hopefully, Hibernian can do a thing or two, because Hibernian, you've got to say, Hibernian are the in-form team in the league right now. There's no disputing that whatsoever. Hibernian have came from 11th, 12th, and you got to remember, Hibernian were bottom of the league just a couple of weeks ago. They were bottom of the league just a couple of weeks ago, and they've won 4 of their last 5 games. Hibernian, they've won 4. They're the only team in the SPFL to have won 4 of the last 5 games. So it's going to be an interesting one just to see how pumped up Hibernian are for this game. And it will be interesting because that is on before the Celtic game this weekend. Anyway, the fact that KT looks as if he is on his way back to Celtic, some of us have had to eat humble pie and say, listen, we trust what the manager says. Anyway, on that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening to all you Celtic fans all around the world. Make sure you join me to 9 a.m. tomorrow morning at Celtic Part Time. We will go live and we'll talk more about St Mirren and any transfer news.
Lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the party, roll up to the lit. Roll up to the party, roll up to